Boker Tov, Chodesh Tov. We are getting closer to Rosh Chodesh Elul, and the month of Elul is a very special month. This year is dedicated in memory of the 6 hostages that were found on Shabbos, and it should be in the memory and in the neshamot on the highest place possible. As we know that someone that was killed al Kiddush Hashem for the sake of Hashem, and because of the fact that he's Jewish, and that puts him in the highest place possible where no one else reaches. So we are dedicated this year to them, and Bezrat Hashem, we should hear good news. We should hear more hostages being returned alive and safe, and the success, of course, of the IDF.
When, not recently, not,
Sorry?
this is not happened, didn't happen.
On Shabbos they found.
In Shabbos.
Yes.
They were released.
Unfortunately, they found them. They were dead when they found.
No, but no living hostages.
Unfortunately, not that we know. We are about to learn the second part of Tanya, and the second part of Tanya is very interesting. It's a bit different to the first part of Tanya. The Alter Rebbe actually was not 100% sure what to start off with. He thought maybe perhaps to start off with this that we're going to learn now, or to start off with the 53 chapters that we learned last year and the year before that. So the Alter Rebbe himself was not really sure, which shows us how important this part is. This contains an introduction, which is chinuch, Sha'ar HaYichud basically, chinuch katan, how to educate, I would say someone young of age, or not only of age, but someone young in general. We'll see this is relevant to each and every one of us. And after he explains how the best way of education is, he goes on to the gate of belief and unifying Hashem. And this is a very important part in our belief as Jews, as we'll see. Contains 12 chapters. It's not 53 like the other chapters that we learned previously, the first part of the Tanya. So this is only 12, but they are heavy chapters in the sense that we have to use our mind and understanding in order to grasp what the Alter Rebbe is teaching us over here. And we will see. I'm not sure if we'll get to that in our shir. This is the first shir. It's going to be a general introduction. And we will learn chinuch katan, which is basically a letter that the Alter Rebbe wrote, or a discourse that the Alter Rebbe wrote about education. So we're going to start off with this, and then we're going to see where to move on. And we're going to continue for sure with the chapters about the belief in Hashem and the unity of Hashem, which are both very, very important subjects in our belief.
Is that the basic idea or matara of Tanya?
So it's a very good question. What is the purpose of Tanya? Belief and unity, or perhaps the service and how near the service is to us? That was the first part of Tanya, explaining how close it is, how accessible it is to us.
The service that we have to undergo.
Exactly. So perhaps we cannot completely follow one without the other. So there are two different subjects, and they involve two different ways of thinking, two different methods of the service of Hashem. But it's not that these are two paths that one can stick to one and you can leave out the other. You need one for the other. One completes the other.
Like the body
This
and the
is
soul.
like the body and the soul. and like the mind and the action. So we are going to be focusing very much on the mind, on the logic behind the existence of God. And the first chapters, they were all about after you understand that he exists and you say that you've got to serve him, how easy it is to serve him, how near it is, what are the ways to inspire us to serve him, etc. So in a certain sense, the second part of Tanya should have been the first part, because that's the basis, understanding that Hashem exists. After you understand, and now Torah is going to bring proof. We're going to see proof to the existence of Hashem, and we will elaborate on that subject. There's a lot to discuss, a lot to talk. There are other ma'amarim, such as the ma'amar of the Rabbi Rashab. The Rabbi Rashab is the fifth Chabad Rabbi. He was very, very deep in the Chassidus that he taught, and he has two very famous ma'amarim, Sha'ar HaYichud, which is one ma'amar, and the Midrash Rehavia, which is the second ma'amar that also speak about proof to the existence of Hashem.
I remember studying Shmita.
Yes.
And when at Sinai, the command was first to obey and then to understand.
Right.
Yeah.
So in that sense, that it perhaps is why the Alter Rebbe said first obey, and that's the first 53 chapters. That's about obeying. What does Hashem want from us? What is Torah? What is mitzvahs? What is awe? What is love? Etc. That's about obeying Hashem. And the second part is understanding.
Yeah.
So maybe that will also explain why the Alter Rebbe, even though the basis is first understand what's happening there and then act. In Judaism, we act the opposite.
Yeah.
Like they say, a Yid says, Shalom Aleichem. What is the reply? You say, Aleichem HaShalom, the opposite.
Yeah.
The month of Elul, and we are going to see this, we'll see this over here also in the chapter. Chapter speaks about Ahava and Yirah, love and fear. This is the introduction. Chinuch Katan, I did not manage to make copies yet. Bezrat Hashem, next week we are going to have copies. And in Chinuch Katan, he speaks about the education that a little child, and not only a child by age, but in a certain sense, we are all children in this, which means we are all juniors in this process of serving Hashem. They are like our forefathers that are seniors, but we are all juniors in that sense, that we're just learning the beginning of the ways of serving Hashem. So he speaks about these two important parts, which is Ahava and Yirah, love and awe, love and fear. And these are the two methods that we're going to see inside of it here. It's very much connected to the month of Elul. And as we know, the month of Elul is, we're going to have Rosh Chodesh Tuesday and Wednesday. So these 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday, are the beginning of a special, special month. What's so special about the month of Elul? Do we do anything special?
The king is in the field.
The king is in the field. So Mordechai, you're jumping right into the deep end of the month. But even before that, what's so special about the month of Elul? So Mordechai said that the king is in the field.
King is in the field.
Yeah, we'll speak a bit about that. Not Mashiach. Mashiach is also in the field already, but Hashem. Yeah. And this, there are basic ideas. What do we do when the month of Elul starts? Slichot, right? So the Sfardim, by the way, they start from Rosh Chodesh. They wake up early in the morning. Some of them that cannot wake up early in the morning, so they do it after Mincha or after Ma'ariv, yes?
I'd rather do that than eat peanuts.
Yeah, okay. So, and some of them do it at 12 o'clock at night. Each and every one according to what he could do. Sorry?
Buses to the wall.
Nachon. Special buses to the Kaisel. The Ashkenazim start Slichot later on, only towards the end of the month, approximately a week before Rosh Hashanah. This year, Rosh Hashanah, if I'm not mistaken, falls out on Thursday, Friday.
Yes, so 3 days.
So we're just going to have 3 days of Slichot. 3 days of Yom Tov. Rosh Hashanah day 1, day 2, Shabbos right afterwards. And Slichot starts Motzei Shabbos. So this is the shortest day amount of Slichot that the Ashkenazim say. Usually if Rosh Hashanah falls out Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, so you don't start Motzei Shabbos, you start the week before that, so you get like a week and a half. Here we get only half a week. So that is about the one minhag. Sorry.
Service on Yom Kippur.
We're going to have a service on Rosh Hashanah
Yeah.
and Yom Kippur. We're going to have it, Bezrat Hashem, we're going to have it over here. So yeah,
You can do,
we'll have all the details soon.
you can do so at home. As much as he wants it.
You're welcome to do as much Slichot as you want. There is Igeret HaTshuvah. We'll learn that later on. And in Igeret HaTshuvah, we will see the way of doing Slichot, etc. So what's interesting is we have a few other trips. So one is Slichot. What other special things we do on the month of Elul? We've got the shofar.
Oh, yeah.
The shofar, that's a big part of the davening. Every day from Rosh Chodesh, we are going to be blowing the shofar, and that is all the way until Erev Rosh Hashanah. The day before Rosh Hashanah, we take a break. And on Rosh Hashanah itself, of course, there's the mitzvah of the shofar. So the month of Elul is not a mitzvah, it's a tradition, it's a minhag. And why? It's because we want to wake up. We want to basically connect to Hashem. We want to inspire ourselves as a preparation for Rosh Hashanah.
So
And-
always blown on Elul
Yes,
every year.
every year. Every year. And as it says, Aryeh sha'ag milo yira. When the lion roars, everyone fears. So perhaps that is one of the reasons that we blow the shofar, is to inspire ourselves to get closer and closer to Hashem. This is connected to one path, and soon we're going to get to what Mordechai said. But this is one path of fear. That's the basis to our service of Hashem.
Fear.
Fear. And sometimes it's the basic level of fear, which means yiras shamayim.
The fear of God.
Yeah, the fear of God, the fear of Hashem, and that is the basis to our service. If you don't fear someone,
Like a fear of death.
in a certain way, it's perhaps the fear of death, right?
Sure.
And why they're two connected? Because Hashem controls life and death. So the fact that He controls it, therefore, we should fear Him. And not only that, but He controls our entire life, our destiny, the path of life that we take. He's in control of all of this. So therefore, we fear Him. And of course, Hasidus puts a huge emphasis on loving Hashem. But without the basic yiras shamayim, the basic fear, so you can't really cause love. It doesn't work that way. You can say that you love Him, but you don't really love Him. Love has to be based, first of all, on certain rules, a strong foundation, which we would call that, or yirah.
The appreciation of being alive.
Exactly, right. And that's the basic.
Yeah, it makes you
Right.
more
Right.
more
Shalom, Hanav, good morning.
Yes.
Nachla. I want to read a bit inside, and just before that, so often because of this preparation for Rosh Hashanah, because of Elul, because of the blowing of the shofar, this caused for many, many years, generations, the Jews to be very, very afraid of this month. And as this month enters, they are already alert, and not only alert, but they really fear Hashem. And Hasidus, as always, comes to enlighten our service in a higher and a deeper way. And this is where we start speaking about what Mordechai said. Mordechai said that the king is in the field. which means that Elul could be a month where we are scared of Hashem. Why? Because He is going to sign our fate for the next year. So He controls life and death. So, of course, we've got to fear Him. He's coming like a scary king that can control and can rule our destiny. Well, in that way, yes, perhaps there is a lot of truth to the idea that we have to fear Hashem. But it's not only about that. If we enter the month of Elul under that inspiration, under that feeling, so we cannot run for a while. If we want to really appreciate the month of Elul, we've got to understand that it's the reason that we have this yira is because the king is in the field. The king is accessible. The king wants to see us. When the year begins, it's a new opportunity. Not only that, but in Hasidus it says that literally there's a new light that gives life to the entire world. And if we go to a lower resolution, the lower resolution would mean that not only that there's a high light that Hashem basically brings to the world and it's a new light, but more than that, that means that I can start a new page entirely. Spiritually, emotionally, physically, when it comes to parnasa, livelihood, when it comes to health, when it comes to my goals. And that's what it says many, many times, that the month of Elul is a month of making an account. Counting my deeds the entire year. It's like a person that has a business. He has to submit reports every single year. There's no way out of it. So you could submit it, and this is scary because a person doesn't always like to look at reality. So he says to his accountant, you submit the reports I don't want to see. And that's not a good way, because you can survive 1 year, you can survive 2 years, perhaps 3 years, but then at the 4th year, your accountant is going to say that you got a letter from the bank or from the whatever it is, the directors, this and that they are saying that it's been 3 years and you're still in debt. So if you are a smart business owner, you look to reality in its face. And you take a look at the papers that the accountant prepared, and you see what brings in revenue, what does not bring in revenue. Is there a plus? Is there a minus? What's happening? And in that same way, we should treat the month of Elul exactly like that. It's a time to do cheshbon hanefesh, to calculate our souls. Where are we holding? Not to put us down, but to say that we have a new year with a new potential and a new light, which means that, yes, we can start from scratch. We can decide that this year we'll do things in a different way. And Hashem gives us bracha, Hashem gives us blessing to do it in that way. That is the idea behind a new life. It's not only something spiritual, which definitely exists, but there's a new living force that is introduced to us and that gives life to the entire world around us. So if you would be able to see it, you would see that the world shines in a different way. But perhaps we cannot see that, but nevertheless, we can understand that, yes, Hashem has for us a special, Hashem has for us a very, very special new beginning for this year. The Rabbi once, yes, Rabbi.
No, not interrupt, but fun fact. Hashbon HaNefesh.
Okay.
The character traits and the definitions are based on, not copied, but based on something that Ben Franklin wrote.
Interesting.
Mostly Weinberger. So, it's been interesting.
Interesting. What did he write? He has a book. He has a.
Yeah, he just wrote a little pamphlet of character traits.
Mhm.
He didn't really preach or anything.
Yeah.
But, and they were entirely missed. So I don't know who was the rabbi or Rabbi compiled Hashbon HaNefesh.
Cheshbon HaNefesh, I think it's a pretty ancient subject. So it starts quite long ago. I've got to look exactly who's the rabbi that started it, but it's known also from Tikkun Chatzot. Fast, the whole idea of fasting, the whole idea of slichot. When a person says he's sorry, so he has to know why he's sorry and what it's going to change in his life. So it's a pretty ancient subject that aligns very much with the idea of teshuvah. The format of it, and perhaps you're referring to the format based on the quality traits and based on certain methods, it could very much be that they are based on that book. So, it's very interesting. And again, connected to what Mordechai said, is that our focus is on the fact that the king is in the field. So the king is in the field means, why do we say that he's in the field? We don't really know the idea of a king, how it used to be. But then in those days, you could never really see the king. And the king wasn't just like an elected person that you could decide or you were a part of. He was the only show. And they were very, very powerful. They could decide life or death. So once a year, if you want to go into the king, you've got to have the right connection. You've got to make an appointment 6 months before, 8 months before, 2 years before many times. And not every time it was worth it to go to the king. If I'm not mistaken, there are many stories about one famous person was Rabbi Yossel Hashtadlan, Rabbi Yossel of Rosenheim. He was a famous Jewish leader who was, we could say, an advocate for the Jews. Maybe that's the closest translation to the idea of Shtadlan. He used to do what we know as Hishtadlus. He did his effort, his part. And in what? He used to speak to the king in favor of the Jews. If they needed something. And he wasn't a rabbi per se. He knew Torah, he did mitzvahs, etc. But he wasn't a rabbi, he was more, maybe we would call it a bit of a lobbyist. So he was able to speak on the ears of politicians. So he went, and once the story is that he went to the king. He wasn't sure, should he go, should he not go? It's one thing speaking to a politician or to a minister, but when you speak to the king, it's something different entirely. So he came up to the king, and he was literally shaking. He couldn't say a single word. And they took him out, and only afterwards he was able to, they brought him again into the king, and only afterwards he was able to. So we see that the idea of a king is something really, really special. We don't know of such a thing today. And then it caused literally awe, because the life and death is in his hands. So what is the month of Elul? The king usually is in his palace. You cannot see him. And even if you do see him, it's frightening. On the month of Elul, Hashem says he goes out to the field. When he goes out to the field, it means that he is accessible. He is accessible for us to make new resolutions, for us to also request and ask for certain things that we want from this new year. And this is the right approach to take when it comes to the month of Elul. It's not only about being scared of Hashem. Yes, we have to have the basic level of awe, of yirah. Without that, you're not going to appreciate the king coming to the field. But after you appreciate the king, and you are afraid of him on a certain level, then you go to the field and the king is accessible.
It becomes visible.
Visible, right.
Close.
Right.
Enjoy the
Think about this and maybe tell me, where do you see it? Or how do you feel that it's real? What does that mean? Because this is a topic that we can contemplate, think about, and I want to hear your feedback. Yes, Hannah.
Why do you think, what would the difference be between Hashem being in the field and opening up his house?
That's a very good question. So opening up his house, it's under his terms. When he's in the field, it's in our terms, in a certain way. And what does that mean? Even if he opens and he lets you in for an interview, you have to be worthy of that. Maybe you're not going to allow yourself ask for whatever you want. Maybe there are certain things you're going to tell yourself, you know what, I cannot ask Hashem for this. I can only ask Hashem for something that I think is worthy. What other difference there would be? Also your direct connection. If you go to his palace, you've got to go through this minister, that minister, you've got to go through this check, that check. When he comes to the field, it's your direct connection to him. So it puts you in a better position.
You feel more comfortable.
You feel more comfortable.
Did other kings do this?
No,
No other kings?
not that I know of. Perhaps if he was a good king, he would do that. Yes, Gabriel.
What are the sources for that?
That's a good question. It's a very good question, because we've got to understand that today there are songs about the concept that the king is in the field, and it's widely accepted to the extent that no one really remembers who started this. But this is brought in the Alter Rebbe's teaching. No one else before the Alter Rebbe. So you're asking a very good question. What is the source to that?
Yes.
Sorry, you are asking. He doesn't really ask what is the source. The Alter Rebbe explains it as one of the things that the Alter Rebbe says, and the answer is connected to what we see here in Chanoch Lanar al Pi Darko. We'll see it over here in our Tanya chapter. But the Alter Rebbe says that that's the light that he feels. He feels the light of Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim, to the extent that the Alter Rebbe says, why isn't it a Yom Tov? We should have a 30-day Yom Tov. Why? Because he feels the light of Hashem. There's a special light of Hashem that shines on this month. So the Alter Rebbe says, why aren't we forbidden from doing Melacha? The more the king is present, what? I'll tell you a question. We've got Shabbos and we've got Yom Tov. Is there a difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov?
The same. They're the same, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm talking about the halachas, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. Is there a difference between the two? There's a little bit of a difference. Generally speaking, they are very similar, but there is a bit of a difference. For example, very good. On Yom Tov, you are allowed to cook. You want to make a barbecue for Shavuos night? Make sure that you have the coals ready, or not even the coals. You've got to have a source of fire, and place the coals. You can light the coals, and you can have a barbecue for Shavuos night.
You can carry.
You can carry as well. You can transfer fire to fire. Why is there a difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov? They're both holidays. We're supposed to rest. Why is there a difference?
Shabbat is special, and closer to God, yes, you're more holy.
That's right, closer to God, which means that each Yom Tov, each day in the year has a certain light that Hashem shines, which means his presence is here in a certain way. On a Vachadika day, Sunday, Hashem is here, but he doesn't really interfere. He's not as present. So that's why you can do malacha, you can do whatever you want. Not whatever you want, but you can do according to the rules that he gave us. There's no special prohibition. Shabbos comes, Hashem says, I'm now more present. I am here with you. So you cannot just go and do whatever you want. You've got to come prepared. You've got to also honor the Shabbos, respect the Shabbos. You've got to have a nice meal. And then comes Yom Tov, and Yom Tov Hashem says, I'm here more than a regular day, but not as much as Shabbos. So therefore you are allowed to cook. Right? When an important guest comes over, you're not going to do your mundane activities, check your phone, check your emails, work. You've got to show respect to the guest. So Hashem is our guest on Shabbos and Yom Tov, but with a bit of a difference. Yom Kippur, why do we fast? Because Hashem says, I'm even more present. So you've got to focus on prayer. Don't even deal with eating. So the Alter Rebbe says that he's feeling the light, the presence of Hashem during the month of Elul. Why? is he allowed to do mundane activities? And now the Rebbe says it's because the king is in the field. He comes to be our guest. There are two things. There's a guest that comes to experience the way you live, and there's a guest that comes with his whole presence, and he's the man of the show. You've got to focus on him. You've got to give him all that attention. You've got to make sure that he's happy. You've got to speak to him. How you doing? What's happening? But there's another person that he says, you know what? I'm coming to experience your Shabbat. I want to see how you act. And this is the month of Elul. And the source to this, like Gabriel, you asked, what is the source? We're going to see it here in Chanoch Lanar al Pidarko. Yes.
Deviate a little bit. There are some people, there are, I'm sure, that at times feel like railing at God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Accusing him
Right.
for not being at the Holocaust or not, you know, that sort of
Right.
thing.
And other churches.
Now, being in the field opens that up to some people. They might feel they're close to God, you know, like in a personal relationship,
Yeah.
and has tendency to start complaining and, God forbid, cursing. So, what is...
Think about it like this, that you have one opportunity, or a month, you've got a month of opportunities to speak to Hashem direct. You decide what you want to say to him. There are people that complain, and you are allowed to do that. You can do. I don't know if you are allowed to do it. You've got to have respect. Hashem does things with the reason, but you can't question Hashem. You can't ask Hashem, why did you do this? Or, yeah, we can request things differently. We cannot challenge Hashem. We cannot say, why did you? That's not the right way to approach Hashem. But think of it that this is your opportunity. And you can actually go and you can request whatever you want. It's up to you. It's in your hands. That's what we learned. You have the free choice to decide how you want to spend and use the month, the upcoming month of it. So let's read here the Hanikra B'Shem Likut Amram Chelek Sheni Hanikra B'Shem Chinuch Katan, the education of Katan, which is a young person, young of age, but not only young of age. We are all, and as we'll see, connected to this idea that the Alter Rebbe tells us. This is all an introduction. Chanoch lanar al pi darko, gam ki yazkin lo yosur mimena. If you educate a child according to the child's way, even when he'll grow old, he will not leave that way that you educated him. This is from King Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo HaMelech tells us that the best way to educate a child is according to the child's terms. Chanoch lanar al pi darko. And then when he grows old, he will still continue these and follow these ways.
What do you mean according to a child's terms? The child might go disco every night, you know?
Right, so that's a very good question. And I see, Ariel, I see your face.
No, it's not good to educate. That's what he's saying.
No, so the Alter Rebbe says, so the Shlomo, Chanoch lanar al pi darko. Educate him according to his ways. Gam ki yazkin lo yosur mimena. And the immediate question is what all of you have. הנה מדכתיב על פי דרכו, משמע שאינה דרך האמת לאמיתו, ואם כן, מהי מעליותה שגם כי יזקין לא יעשו ממנו. If it's according to his ways, that means that it's not the appropriate and best way to educate him. So how does that guarantee, first of all, why is that right to do so? And not only why is it right, but how does that guarantee that he will continue, gam ki yazkin, even when he'll grow older, he'll still follow the ways of Hashem.
What are the ages of children?
So this is what we said at the beginning. It's children of all ages, because we're talking about the service of Hashem. So the question is, why should we educate him al pi darko?
Doesn't make sense.
Right? And that's the question of the Alter Rebbe. You should educate him not al pi darko, not according to the child's ways. And like you said, he might want to go party every single night. So the Alter Rebbe, of course, it involves chinuch, you're educating. But the Rambam is the first one to say that the way that you educate a child is at the beginning you tell him to keep Torah and mitzvahs, because you'll give him a present, you'll give him candy, you'll give him whatever it is, cookies, chocolate, whatever causes the child to follow the ways of Hashem. Slowly but surely make sure to wean him off those things. You don't want him to be always going to shul, because his father's going to give him chocolate, or because he's going to get candy. It's not a good way of the service. It shouldn't be the way of serving Hashem. And that's what the Rambam says, that later on he should do it because this is the emet, because this is the truth. So how could it be that Shlomo HaMelech, who was the wisest of our kings, he says, "Chanoch lanar al pi darko, gam ki yazken lo yosum." So in order to understand that, we've got to speak about what are we trying to educate? What are we trying to teach him? What are we trying to teach this child? When it comes to school, so we know they just started the school year, the 1st of September. So when it comes to school, you want to teach the kid maths, you want to teach him English, you want to teach him whatever it is. Of course, in our school, so we teach him Chumash, we teach him Torah, we teach him to daven, we teach him Mishnah, Gemara, Hasidus, etc., according to the age. That's what we are trying to teach the child. So for that, you also got to have the best method of education. But here, what is Shlomo HaMelech referring to? What type of education are we trying to teach this child? And again, it's not only a child of age. So the Alter Rebbe says to us that the source of Avodas Hashem is love and fear. Love and fear, why? Because fear causes us to stay away from the prohibitions, and love causes us to come closer to Hashem through the mitzvahs, the channels that He gives us to serve Him. So in other words, we want people, Shlomo HaMelech is thinking, but we want people to serve Hashem better. We want people to do more mitzvahs, to seek more mitzvahs. We want people to stay away from Averos. We don't want them to do the prohibitions. That is our purpose. That is our goal. And Alter Rebbe says here that there are two ways to doing it. One way is al pi darko, and the other way is to be a bit more stubborn. And the Alter Rebbe says that King Solomon was very wise, because he says you've got to do it al pi darko, according to his way. We'll see, what do we mean here, his way exactly. Here's Chanot.
Is this the time too when we're assessing, doing an accounting of the qualities of Hashem and aligning ourselves with those qualities we had in the course that we took? Remember that sheet?
Yeah.
Of all the different qualities.
Right, but you want to follow Hashem's ways. So, first of all...
But that you're looking at perhaps a particular quality.
Right. Right. So here, the mantra of Elul that we spoke about is a person within himself. His qualities. Start off with that. Okay? Person should go through his day, and it's very good to do. If a person wants to build himself emotionally, spiritually, it's a very good thing to do. Go through your day and see your activities, your actions, the way you respond, the way you act. Make a calculation. What can I stay away from? What can I embrace? What can I add? Etc. That's a very healthy thing. By the way, this method is done not only in the Jewish world, but this is something that is worldwide. For example, negotiate everything that you want to practice a certain habit, a certain behavior. There's a Dale, what's his name? Dale Carnegie. Dale Carnegie. So he has a whole way of how to
influence people.
Make friends and influence people, right? So he has a whole book with a lot of exercises, and one of the things, there's also cheshbon hanefesh, that you've got to sit once a week and you've got to see how much did you go by these rules and where did you not, and where could you improve? Because when it comes to human beings, so it's easy to snap, or it's easy to respond, not without thinking, but if you want to achieve your goals, you've got to do that. So that's the cheshbon nefesh that we're talking about. Later on, yes, you connect to the midos of Hashem. But back to our subject here, what we see is the Alter Rebbe teaches us that there are two ways that a person can be inspired by Hashem. One is al pi darko, which means based on your life. We're not speaking about a child that you tell the child, you know what, let's follow your ways and your desires. That's not a derech at all. There's no derech, there's no root in going and partying all day. That's not a method, that's not a way. But when you want to educate him already, you can educate him in two ways. One is a gift that comes from Hashem. And these are very few people in a lifetime that they are lucky to get a special inspiration from Hashem. And these people that are inspired, they live a certain life that is devoted to Hashem, connected to Hashem without any challenges. But that is not darko. That is without paying attention to the individual. Shlomo HaMelech says a Jewish education is an education that you pay attention to the individual darko. Doesn't mean that if you've got to ask the child, how would you like to be educated? Or would you like candy every single day, once a day, 2 times a day, 3 times a day? That's not education. Of course, there's a gradual process of the Rambam. Yes, don't be strict right at the beginning. You've got to give candy at the beginning, but at the end, you're the one that sets the rules. But it has to be a pitarko with paying attention to his derech, to his life. And soon we will see that this is very important. This is very, very important.
Can't have
Yes, Rabbi.
11 kids show up to form a soccer team. The coach has to say, this guy will be doing this. This
Right.
guy will play this position because he's better suited
Right.
to this position.
Right.
Figure out each one.
Nachon. Right? And that contains two things. First of all, that there are certain ground rules. So we're playing soccer and there are rules to the soccer game. But second of all, paying attention to the individual and saying you are good at that and therefore you should be at that position.
Unfortunately, a lot of us never got that guidance from our parents where it should come.
Right. So,
And you might want to do that to your children.
Right.
You don't know how because you,
Right.
you know. And
so it's very interesting. I think that our generation is different. And in that way, there is much more attention that's put on the individual. And not only that, but in the culture that we see around us, people are shouting for that. People want others to pay attention to their individuality, to their own personal way of thinking, feelings, etc. We'll speak about that soon. But this is what King Solomon says, that, and for another example is a verse that says, and Gabriel, you were asking about the source, so it's important to bring the verses and the sources. So the source for that is Ahava et Hashem Elokecha ki hu chayecha. Love Hashem. Why should I love Hashem? You could love Hashem for 3 reasons. You could love Hashem because you're forced to love Hashem. That's not, there's no such a thing really as loving Hashem because you're forced to. It's not love.
It's loving him out of fear, probably.
Loving him out of fear, right. There's loving Hashem because you are inspired, tzaddikim. They are different creatures. We don't even understand what goes through their mind. Like we love a burger. We love
nature. We love nature.
nature, for example. So they love Hashem. That is their nature. That this is a gift. If someone's gifted, someone is lucky. But most people don't get it. But there is another thing: is la'ahavat Hashem Elokecha ki hu chayecha. Hashem is the one that gives you life. Hashem is your life. And based on your derech, what is your derech? Your personality, what you see around you, what Hashem granted you, the things that you are grateful for, the gratitude that you give Hashem based on that. These are all the meaning of al-pi darko. One person loves Hashem because He has a healthy life. And he appreciates, every time he was strong. He never sees doctors. He doesn't go through any medical procedures. That's why he loves Hashem. Another person loves Hashem because of his children. Another person loves Hashem because he's wealthy. Another person loves Hashem because he was lucky to live in a certain place. That is al pi darko, chanoch lanar al pi darko. This requires a lot of contemplation, because you've got to remove all the sidetracks. Got to remove them because they are there to disturb us and to say, well, you're not successful in every part of life's fields, so why should you love Hashem? And like you said, a person can come to the king. The king is accessible in the field. So you've got two options. You can decide. You want to thank him for all the good, or you want to say, well, why did you do this and that to me? And you have a certain case. It's not like you don't have a case at all. You have a case. So we have the choice, and that's why it's not an easy. The Alter Rebbe is not telling us that it's easy. That's not one of the ideas. But the Alter Rebbe is telling us the king is in the field. So, Gabriel, you asked, where is the source to the idea that the king is in the field? It starts here from King Solomon. Chanoch lanar al pi darko. Yes, the king is here to make sure that he is accessible to you. And the more we think about that, the easier it would be. In the words of the Alter Rebbe, Hine be'ahava, we just read it in the Parsha, not this Parsha, the Parsha before it, Parsha's Eikev. Hine asher aleichem etzaveschem la'asoisa le'ahava es Hashem. I command you to love Hashem. How does it work? How can you command someone to love Hashem?
Well, it is the fear of punishment.
That's fear, and that's what Rabbi Leib said. That's already fear. If you force someone and you tell someone you've got to love Hashem, you have to love Him. La'asotah. Make that love. Make it happen. How am I going to make it happen? It's or you love someone or you don't love it. This is the question. This is the question that Dr. Rebbe says. How is it possible to force this love, to make love? Gabe ahava shebalev. Acha inyan hu, the Alter Rebbe says, think about it, there are two paths. Shnei minei ahava, there are two types of love. Ha'achas ikleis hanefesh betiva, naturally born as a tzaddik, that the soul, all it wants to do is just connect to Hashem. The soul does not even pay attention to the needs of the body. The soul does not take favor in the pleasures of the world. The soul has no interest in that. And then automatically the soul can inspire and connect to Hashem, and enjoys Hashem. And that's the tanug, that's the pleasure that the soul gains. The soul does not gain pleasure from materialism. The soul really gets pleasure the same as it is in Gan Eden. If a person thinks that in Gan Eden there's beer waiting for him, it's not going to happen. There are better things than that. What is that? Things that inspire the soul. So the soul also enjoys, but what does the soul enjoy?
Joy.
Connection to Hashem. That is the real joy that the soul has. And that is one type, and it's called ahava rabba, tremendous love. And that is a tzaddik. Tzaddik is born with strong love towards Hashem. Who are the ones that can really be happy with Hashem? Simchut tzaddikim. Tzaddikim can be happy. And not every person merits this level of love. You have to have a lot of Torah and mitzvahs. Not only that, but you've got to do what is called zikuch hachomer. Zikuch hachomer means like they do zikuch. It's like they take, what would be the word for zikuch? Lezakech, to polish. Or like they take a gemstone. And they clean it, they polish it, then they do it in the right shape. We've got to do that to our bodies. Our bodies are very material. It's chomer, material. So it pulls us down. Until a person wants to go to the Kaisel, or he wants to go and he wants to say Slichos, or he wants to say Tehillim, whatever it might be, what sometimes happens is that the body pulls him down. So you've got to make sure that you've got to put, yes,
silver through the furnace.
exactly. And sometimes with the body cannot tolerate it.
Yeah.
So that's why not everyone can reach the level of a tzaddik. But this is the second path, and this is darko. V'ashenis, ki ava shekol adam yuchal lagia she's b'nanei b'mkodeli. When a person contemplates, thinks about certain ways to connect to Hashem, that also brings the love. Hein NACHLAOT, ki hu chayenu mamash. Hashem is the one that brings us and allows us, enables us to sit here together today. That's first of all. That already causes a certain level of love.
Can I just ask you to?
Sure.
Now, if God controls your life,
Yeah.
every aspect of your life, and He loves you, then He can put you to providence through the furnace, and you wonder why you are going through difficult times, terrible.
That's what
times in your
happens.
life,
Yeah.
and you've tried very hard to do otherwise.
Right. That's what happens. That's what happens. Certain things we have free choice, others we don't.
Yeah.
When it comes to Torah and mitzvahs, we have free choice. But whether a person is going to be smart, is he going to be rich, is he going to be healthy, is he going to be all of these things, that is when the neshama goes down, Hashem says, this is your destiny. That's what you're going to be. And you've got to play with that. There's no free choice then. You can pray to Hashem. Hashem can change certain things. Prayer is always a gate that works. So here, what Hashem is telling us, Dr. Rebbe is telling us basically, is the second way of loving Hashem is through understanding that He is our life. He gives us life, so He is the source to life.
And there's a problem there.
Yeah.
Of course, to do this, we're focusing on separation. When we see Hashem as the source of our life, so and He's the source. Yes, there's a connection.
Right.
At the same time, we have to focus on the separation.
Separation between
The Creator and the created.
Yeah. So there is definitely also a certain level of separation. And there are higher levels within this reaching this love, that you start off from the basic level, the fact that Hashem brings us to life. That's already one level. And then with contemplation, you can go to deeper and deeper levels.
So you approach closer and closer.
And that's how you get closer and closer.
Uh-huh.
So the separation at the beginning, it's like the more you know about a person, and this is why we're going to speak a lot about knowledge. The next 12 chapters, Sha'ar HaYichud, it's about understanding Hashem, because that's the gate. You cannot love someone that you don't know. It says, Da et Elokei avicha ve'ovdeu belevav shalem. Know the God of your father and serve Him with a full heart. Without knowing the God of your father, you cannot serve Him with a full heart. You don't know Him. You cannot love someone that you don't know. And the more you know a person, the more you get to know Him, the more you can love Him. So that's why this is an introduction to Sha'ar HaYichud. Because if we want to approach this way of Al Pi Darko, which means what Hashem gives this young child, and that is the love that we should have towards Hashem, like the young child, like that individual, what he's feeling, his path in life, that is after we know Hashem. We know that He's the creator. We know that He's involved in every single action that we do. We know that He's with us even with the bad decisions, for example. We know that He's doing it for our good. All of these things are about knowing Hashem, and as a result, building a connection, a loving connection, that this loving connection is darko. Your own individual part.
is this what the Alter Rebbe means by accepting first and then going to the depths of our understanding?
No, so accepting first what we spoke about at the beginning, that's the 53 chapters before. We dived into the service. What is the service? What is Torah? What is mitzvah? What is a soul? What is an animal soul, etc.? That is knowing the fact, knowing reality. Here, it's a bit about challenging. And by the way, we are going to ask questions, tough questions. Who says that Hashem creates the world? What does it mean that he created the world? Is he always connected to us? Is he not always connected to us? Do we have some kind of value in his eyes? What is the value that we have? Can we fight him? Can we disobey? All of these things, that's what we're going to learn in the second chapter. So here, this is about understanding that the method, the path is al pi darko. And here, we don't have many more minutes, but I do want to mention that this shows the importance of the individual. So we might ask ourselves, does it matter my approach? Does my approach matter? No, there are books. You've got to follow the books. If you take a look at the amount of books, so yes, 1,000 years ago, they had the Gemara. Perhaps they had other books of the Geonim, which is Rab Saadia Gaon, questions and answers. They had, of course, the Mishnah. They had the Torah. They had the Tanakh. The Rambam was just at the beginning writing, but they did not. As the generations go by, there are more and more books. And one of the reasons to that is because each and every person has his own way of seeing the service of Hashem. Again, we have strict rules. You cannot start a new religion. You cannot start new and develop new ways of serving Hashem. It doesn't. But based on the rules that Hashem gives us, based on the books that we are that we've been taught, yes, you can put your own fingerprint on that. And so, you know what? What inspires me is this way. Why? Because this is Darko. And that's why Gam Ki Azkin, many years later, you're still going to follow that path. That path of loving Hashem, of understanding, of accepting Him, that is your path of life. And like we said at the beginning, the example is that we have to be grateful and know that Hashem is the cause of Ki Hu Chayecha. He's our life. What is your life? Ask yourself. What is your life experience? What did you go through? And definitely a person can find things that make him happy. If a person says that he's not happy, Ki Hu Chayecha, he's avoiding reality. There's a different problem of it. It's a different problem. You don't have to have success in all fields, but in the fields that you have success, that is your life. What is your life and what you're good at? And what Hashem gifted you. Focus on that, and that is how you'll be able to switch on and cause this love. Force the love in. You cannot force love, but if you contemplate, you understand that Hashem is the creator. Hashem created your life, and within your life there's a lot to be thankful for. That is how we can reach life.
Tanya actually teaches you how to believe in God.
So that's where we are going to. That is the second part of Tanya, how to believe in Hashem.
So some people have difficulty in believing in God, there's always a block, something. Tanya actually is designed to get rid of that block.
Yeah.
The people who want to believe.
Many times it's based on previous experiences or things like that. Yes, David.
So why in Elul are we focusing on meeting the king in the field? Why aren't we focusing on understanding, accepting, and loving the brachos that Hashem has given us? Wouldn't that be a better way to prepare?
Right. So it's a good thing that Hashem already granted us with everything that's good, and we have a bracha. Together with that, a new year means a new light. New light means a new opportunity, new challenges, And therefore, we're asking Hashem for koyach for that new year,
Ah,
for blessings for that new year, for koyach.
so we don't just stick with the old year.
Exactly. Even though the old year is very dear,
We can do that.
we need better, we can do better. And that's because there's a new light as well.